Happy rainy Monday. Continuing with laws of Sefirah. We're on Tough Pay Tess in the middle of Dalit, 489, 4. And today we're going to be talking about eating before Sefirah. Is one allowed to eat before he counts the Omer? So let's see. Says the Ramah, Ukishehagia Hazman Asur La'echol Ad Sheyispor. When it becomes the time to count Sefirah HaOmer, which is when 3 stars come out, Seisa Kahav, when the stars come out, it's forbidden to eat until you count. Vafilu hischalechol posik v'sofer. Even if you start eating before that time, you have to stop. Not before that time. Even if you start eating after that time, you have to stop. Miu im hischalechol kodem shegiazman. But if you start eating before that time, ein tzarich lahafsik. You don't have to stop. Elagoymer achilasu v'sofer achakach. Finish your eating and then count. The reason is one shouldn't eat before the mitzvah. We're worried he's going to get so involved in his meal. He's going to forget to count, he's going to forget to do the mitzvah. So we want to make sure we do the mitzvah before we get involved in other activities. But let's see, the Mishnah Berurah, there's going to be some details here. And, Chav Gimel, the Mishnah Berurah, Ukishigia Hazman. Right, so Laimer Tzesek Hav, it means when the stars come out. Vafil Yim Kfar is Palo Kriyish Matfil. This is even talking about if he already davened, he already said Shema, and he already davened, still he's not allowed to eat because he didn't do the mitzvah of Sefirah. Because if he didn't daven and he didn't say Shema yet, that's even of a bigger reason that he can't eat, because he has a lot of mitzvahs to do. He's got to say Shema, which is a Torah mitzvah, he's got to daven, and he's got to say Sefirah. The latter-day rabbis agree. Earlier, when it comes to davening and Shema and whatnot, we paskin that one should not eat. Actually, I believe that's talking about Shema, in the evening Shema. One should not eat, not only from Tzesuk Achavim, but from 30 minutes before. Because the rabbis were nervous that even if you start eating from 30 minutes before, you'll continue eating and you won't be able to do the mitzvah. You'll forget to do the mitzvah. Even if you already daven. But in a place where there's a shamish who used to go around and tell everyone it's time to count Sefirah and it's time to go to shul, there's no prohibition of a half hour before. Again, because the whole issue is we're worried you're going to forget. So if you have someone there reminding you to count, then it's not a problem. So similar, Rabbi Eider brings from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein that it seems that if you have a set minyan, let's say you daven every night at 9 o'clock. So does that mean you can't eat before 9 o'clock when you daven Sefirah? So it seems that one can be lenient since he has a set minyan that he goes to every evening at 9 o'clock or whatever time it is. We're not worried he's going to forget because it's part of his routine that he goes to the minyan where he davens and says Sefirah. Also, it seems that we're not talking about just, tasting food or having a little snack. We're talking about a prohibition here is about sitting down and having a meal, having a whole seudah. But if one has a minyan that he goes to every night, it seems that he can be lenient in that case. This has to do also, it's not only eating, but getting involved in certain activities where a person will be distracted and forget to count Sefirah. That would also be a problem, and look in Siman Reish Lamed Hey, Reish Lamed Beis, similar prohibitions mentioned there about what type of activities, a lot of details there about before davening mincha, and the same type of idea. So posik v'sofer. So the Ramah said that if you started eating, you have to stop and you have to count. So he says this is according to the opinion that counting the Omer nowadays is a Torah obligation. If you remember, we had a debate. Sefirah nowadays, that we don't have a temple and there's no Omer offering, is it still a Torah obligation or is it a rabbinic obligation? So since the Ramah is being so stringent in saying that one has to stop from eating and count Sefirah, he is going to in the opinion that it's a Torah obligation. However, since we hold that nowadays Sefirah is only rabbinic, one doesn't have to stop eating. So they explain, even though we usually hold that Sefirah is only rabbinic, and therefore one would not have to stop, the rabbis explain that here the Ramah is being stringent for the opinion that Sefirah is deraisa, that it's a Torah commandment. Why? Because it's very easy And if it's a Torah commandment, we have to treat it more seriously, and we have to stop eating, because Sefirah, it's very easy to stop and just count Sefirah. You make a bracha, you count the day, and you go back to eating. It takes all of 20 seconds. So for such a minor inconvenience, the Rama is going to be stringent here. Okay, if one, since we said that one is prohibited from eating a half hour before the time to count Sefirah, so a half hour before the stars come out, if one started eating, a long meal even before that time and continued, he would not have to stop, because he started eating when the time was okay. When you started to eat when you were allowed to, then you don't have to stop, even if you hold that Sefirah is a Torah obligation. So, just to summarize, once it gets to a half hour before, a half hour before the stars come out, so that would be around, so like I said, let's say for argument's sake, the past week the stars came out around 8:10. So that means 7:40, one should not be sitting down for a large meal if he has not yet counted Sefirah. And the exception to this would be if one later is going to go to a minyan, that's a set minyan that they always go to at like 9 o'clock, and he's not going to forget. It seems in that case one could be lenient. So one is not allowed to start certain malachos, certain activities, or to eat that would perhaps cause him to forget to count Sefirah. Now, when this does come up very often is when we make an early Shabbos, Friday, and we sit down for the Shabbos Suda. So then we're really having a meal. So one should not start the Shabbos Suda, because he hasn't said Shema yet. One did not fulfill the mitzvah of Shema, and one didn't count Sefirah yet. So it sounds like one should not sit down to start the meal within a half hour of Tzesuk Chavim when the stars come out. So if one's making an early Shabbos, he should make sure he starts the meal before that time. Okay, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out, and have a beautiful day, and I hope it stops raining.